anyways, there we go. It's all still new to me, the technology here. But I guess that I might want to consider putting it, shutting it down after like a few minutes, and then starting again. That's how you learn this business. I mean, I'm doing this thing new. So, the first half hour we talked about the group trying to make Tufts University a sanctuary city for illegal aliens. My feeling on that is mixed in that I support the road to citizenship, particularly for young people whose parents came here and they grew up here, they went to high school here, they went to college here. There ought to be a road to citizenship for them. I agreed with President Obama's executive order on that, and I hope that President Trump is able to make it legal by suggesting it to by filing a bill with Congress, letting Congress have an up or down vote on it, and making that the law. I also do not think it's realistic to deport millions of people. We need them. They add to the economy. The economy would collapse without them. However, we need to vet them. We need to know who they are. We need to make sure that they are not criminals or terrorists or rapists, as Trump so indelicately put, and that they're here as able-bodied citizens, willing to work. They're not on welfare, that they are here to contribute to American life, and that they take a loyalty oath as they enter in. They take an oath to the Constitution. I think that that's a reasonable thing to expect. Some of these groups that are supportive of Sanctuary City, they seem to have a bigger agenda, quite frankly, in that it's not so much that they want to give sanctuary to illegal aliens. And by the way, I mean, I suppose having said that, why aren't they supportive of building the wall? I mean, why not secure the borders so that we can then not only create a pathway to citizenship for people who are here illegally and make sure that they undergo the proper vetting, but that we can then have an ability as a nation to decide who comes in and who doesn't. Isn't that a basic function of any sovereign nation? I think so. Just like it's your right as a citizen, as a person, to decide who goes into your home and who doesn't. The nation state has a right to decide who enters the national home and who doesn't. And we elect governments to regulate that policy. We may want to be liberal about it, have more immigration, or conservative. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the economy. It depends on the culture. It doesn't matter really ultimately what the reasons are. The fact is that we, as a sovereign nation, have a right to make the decision. Just like any sovereign nation has the right. If we were in Zimbabwe, we would have the right to decide who comes in and who doesn't. That is one of the functions of national sovereignty. And I think that what I detect in certain of these organizations who are advocates for what they call euphemistically migration or immigration, when in fact it's illegal aliens, is that they do not value sovereignty as a concept, let alone American sovereignty. They believe literally in open borders. I mean, I suppose if you got down to like asking them, well, if you believe in open borders, would you mind having 100 million Muslims come into the country? I mean, I guess that might call the bluff, and maybe they wouldn't care. I don't know. The point is that philosophically, they don't believe in borders. They don't believe in property. They don't believe in your right to own that which you own. They don't believe in private ownership. They don't believe in the private ownership of the means of production. Let's call it what it is. They're communists. They think there's a virtue in abolishing private ownership, that this is good, right? That this is an ultimate goal. They have a utopian idea that this is some kind of an ideal, as if doing something like that is going to help anybody, rather be very, very destructive and very damaging to everybody. So I think that in a discussion about this, while we can have a legitimate conversation about offering citizenship to young people who grew up in this country and who have gone to high school here and they're in college here, to get them citizenship. They should have citizenship, right? They didn't do anything. They were too young to know any better when their parents broke the law by crossing the border. I don't want to blame them. And they're contributing to the country. I want to help them. I think we all do. We need them. And also people who are here working, who are here contributing. I actually think that getting them into citizenship is a more humane approach because they're being exploited by corporations who have them in there. We don't know what kind of labor conditions, right? So we value labor in this country. We value standards of labor. And in that capacity, we should invite them and give them a pathway to citizenship. There ought to be a period of education about the Constitution. We ought to make sure that they understand a little bit about American history and about American ideas and philosophy. And then they ought to take an oath of office, if you will, a loyalty oath, where we can ask them to, or we can expect them to be loyal to the Constitution and not loyal to some foreign means of government, whether it be communist or Sharia law or white supremacy or anything else. These things obviously are anathema to America's ethos, American way of life. We want to know that they want to be here because we're American and they want to be Americans. We want to know that, right? That's how my grandparents and great-grandparents did it. They weren't given welfare. They weren't given anything. They came here because they wanted to be free. And they worked very hard to Americanize, to assimilate, to acculturate. Didn't mean they lost their religion. They didn't. Or their previous culture, which they also held onto to a certain extent, but only as a subculture to the bigger culture which they loved, and that was the American culture. And in fact, this is an issue that was addressed by George Washington in his farewell address, where he said that while he wants to preserve the right of all Americans to, and I can't quote it, but I read it, to continue their unique and particular manners and ethnicities and beliefs, at the same time, his hope was that all Americans would embrace America first, a united culture, a united, language, a united people, a United States. And that's a principle that I support, and I think that we ought to expect as a bare minimum our new immigrants' support. So, having said that, I think that we need to examine and debate, frankly, other agendas that might be attached to what looks like on the surface to be a humane idea. And by doing so, we might stand to actually get to a genuinely progressive approach, as opposed to kind of a loaded approach. So, in that capacity, I contacted this group to join me today here at Tufts University, where I am presently broadcasting, and do so every other Thursday right now. And they didn't get back to me. And as I mentioned in the first segment, this has become common. I don't think it's unique to me personally. I think it has more to do with the fact that unlike years ago when I started in this business, when I would always have people up from all sides of a view, people from the left, right, and center, they'd come in, we wouldn't agree, we'd sometimes have heated discussions, but it was always friendly, it was always respectful. Now they don't even contact me anymore. They don't want to come on. Nobody wants to talk about differences. It's not even that they say no. They just don't bother to get back to me at all. And I wonder if it's because of me, but I think it probably isn't. I think it's probably because the people aren't talking to each other anymore. People are all polarized. Look at this election. I mean, boy, I mean, the bitterness of people who over Trump's election is inexplicable to me. In fact, you can text me if you want on YouTube or call me to talk about that. But I mean, I can tell you that I attended several social events after the election, one of which was Thanksgiving with friends of my family's. And I was told in advance this would be a Trump-free zone. We're not going to talk about Trump. And they were too upset to even mention the name. What the heck is that about? We should be celebrating. Even look at, I didn't vote for Barack Obama. And I didn't admire him or his policies. But I celebrated when he won because I was happy and relieved and pleased that this nation had a peaceful revolution, a peaceful transfer of power, and I respected that, and I gave him a honeymoon. I didn't attack. It's like, you give somebody a chance to kind of get their feet wet, and then you disagree based upon issues. You go into what might euphemistically be called the loyal opposition.